entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, and its author is the excellent Andrew Lownie, who joins us now. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you.
Always a pleasure to chat to you.
As I said, you've been pretty strong in what you've said in the past.
Let me tell you, the past few weeks around Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor have been something extraordinary. It is rare that a royal story manages to feel both predictable and shocking at the same time. Yet here we are, with new claims about Andrew's behaviour coming from a biographer who has spent years digging into the House of York. According to Andrew Lownie, the man who has already raised eyebrows with his earlier work, Andrew didn't just have a wandering eye. He allegedly had a whole network of staff, acquaintances and friends whose role, formal or not, was to arrange girls for him. Not dates arranged through the usual channels, but invitations quietly issued to women at nightclubs, hotels, ballet performances, and diplomatic events.
That you think it's a very serious possibility that as more and more revelations come out about Prince Andrew, or Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor as he is now, and Jeffrey Epstein and what he got up to in those dark years, that it is not beyond the realms of possibility.
All reportedly tailored to his taste for blondes and ballerinas. It's the kind of claim that makes you stop for a moment and ask, how did this go on for so long without someone pulling the brakes? Because if what Lownie describes is accurate, this wasn't something happening in a corner. This was woven into his lifestyle for years. He would sit in the Royal Ballet audience, spot a young dancer, and, according to Lownie, tap his personal protection officer to extend an invitation. A taxpayer-funded officer whose job was to protect him, not to play matchmaker. One diplomat even told Lownie that when Andrew's team asked him to source blondes for an event, he snapped, "I'm a diplomat, not a pimp." It is rare to hear someone inside that world speak with that level of blunt frustration. These embarrassing claims come at a moment when Andrew has already lost nearly everything that once defined his public role. His military titles, his patronages, his use of style. Even the Duke of York title that he held since 1986 all surrendered because the allegations and questions around his past simply would not fade. That context matters, because these allegations are not landing in a quiet moment. It is landing in the middle of a reputational freefall that began years ago and has accelerated sharply since the Epstein files began resurfacing. Lownie's claims go well beyond a few questionable nights out.
Yes, well, I think you probably skipped to the Middle East before that happens. But yeah, this is bad news for him. I never expected this to happen. The Trump administration have fought for years to suppress this material. They can see that for its sort of voting base that it was being very damaging.
He writes that Andrew sometimes slept with women he didn't realise were prostitutes. He describes trips abroad, where Andrew reportedly preferred staying in hotels rather than the royal residences, because hotels gave him freedom in who he saw. Escorts, who posed as businesswomen or professionals, were allegedly made available for him to choose from. Lownie is careful to frame these as stories told over the years, but the fact that they have been repeated privately for so long is itself telling. Andrew was made patron of the English National Ballet in the late 90s, shortly after Diana's death. According to one staff member, the organisation felt he was foisted on them. His interest was not in ballet technique or repertoire, it was the dancers. When he attended performances, he insisted on choosing who sat in the royal box with him. The names were not provided to the company. It was assumed they were mistresses, a yoga teacher, and the occasional businessman. The chairman was allowed in at the interval for a drink, and that was that. It paints a picture of a man who treated the patronage less as a cultural responsibility and more as a private lounge. But to really understand why these claims resonate, you have to look back at Andrew's dating history after his divorce from Sarah Ferguson in 1990. This is where patterns emerge. He dated the businesswoman Aurelia Cecil for a time, but friends said she struggled with the constant public attention and with the behaviour of those around him. Then came the relationship with photographer and actress Koo Stark. They had dated before his marriage, and many who knew them believed she was the one he truly cared for. After the divorce, they reconnected. But the pressure around their past and the tabloids' obsession with her history as an actress ultimately pushed them apart again. There were also reports linking him to various socialites in the late 90s and early 2000s. Women who, according to reporting over the years, described him as charming in public but unpredictable in private. One woman, who attended parties with him through mutual friends, alleged that he sometimes behaved in ways that made guests uncomfortable. Nothing that crossed into criminal allegations, but certainly behaviour that most senior royals would never dream of. Loud jokes, crude comments, and a fixation on young dancers and models. Again, none of this is new, but to see it all organised into a pattern by Lownie has caught the attention of many who follow royal history closely. Another recurring theme is his friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell. Their closeness has been widely noted for decades, but what Lownie emphasises is how Maxwell acted as both gatekeeper and introducer. She moved in social circles filled with young women, dancers, and aspiring professionals. Many have said Maxwell carried herself as someone who could make things happen for people. Andrew reportedly relied on her for contacts, introductions, and access to the sort of glamorous parties he enjoyed. What was presented as social connection now carries a very different tone in the light of what has since been exposed. Then there is the matter of Virginia Giuffre, who died earlier this year at age 41. She had alleged repeatedly that she was abused by Andrew when she was a teenager, a claim he has always denied. He settled her civil suit in the United States in 2022, with a payment thought to be in the millions. Just before her memoir was released posthumously, Andrew announced he was surrendering his remaining titles because accusations about him were overshadowing the work of the king and the royal family. The timing was not lost on anyone. Andrew is unlikely to ever set foot in the United States again. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani told Page Six that Andrew would be foolish to risk it. Even without Giuffre available to testify, there are too many unanswered questions and too many outstanding documents that investigators could use as a basis for further inquiry.
And it's another case of people power, and the way that people power, I think, shifted attitudes here, so that the king took away Andrew's titles and forced him out of Royal Lodge. So I think we've got several things that may be happening. We may get a stronger sense of the extent of the relationship Andrew had with Epstein.
The exact legal thresholds are complex, and the details are unclear. But the risk is enough that he is expected to remain firmly on British soil for now. There have been recent reports that Epstein tried to introduce Andrew to another young blonde woman, who is now a yoga instructor in New York. It is unclear whether she ever met Andrew, but the fact that her name was even being floated shows how deeply Andrew was embedded in Epstein's network. Lownie argues that Andrew either did not ask enough questions or did not care to. Neither interpretation reflects well. The broader allegations about Andrew's behaviour at parties are also worth discussing, because they fit into the overall picture. There are stories from the 90s and early 2000s of Andrew attending private events in London, Verbier, and New York, where he behaved in ways described as lewd or entitled. Guests recalled him putting his hands on women he had just met, asking intrusive questions, and assuming that his royal status protected him from consequences. One woman said he once asked her to spin around so he could get a better look. Another said he tried to lure her into a side room during a party at a private home. She refused, and he immediately turned his attention to someone else. None of these women pursued complaints at the time.
When it actually began much earlier than he says, that it went on much later than he says. I think that'll be also true of Sarah Ferguson. I think we are also going to possibly get other victims coming forward, girls who were sent to him. Part of the case has always been Virginia Giuffre was a discredited witness. She was only 17.
But their accounts have resurfaced in documentaries and interviews. What stands out in all of this is the consistency. Over and over, the stories echo the same themes: his preference for young blondes, his fascination with ballet dancers, his expectation that staff should source women for him, his habit of inviting women to his hotel suite, his willingness to rely on people like Maxwell. It suggests that he lived in a world where boundaries rarely applied, and where the structure around him existed to facilitate rather than restrain. There is another dimension to this that Lownie touches on: Andrew's sense of status. He grew up believing he was important. He served in the Navy, yes, but he also grew accustomed to deference. That mindset, combined with the freedom that came after his marriage ended, seems to have created a lifestyle with few limits. When you add the connection to Epstein, who actively enabled the worst tendencies of powerful men, it becomes even clearer why Andrew has ended up in the position he is in now. And yet, he remains largely insulated from direct legal consequences in the UK.
But we may have younger girls who may well now be discovered or come forward. I think clearly we may get lots of other names, particularly American names, but also possibly some British names. So we don't know what we don't know. But from my research, there's certainly going to be some bombshells. As you said, only a few of these emails have leaked so far.
He still lives on the Windsor estate. He still receives round-the-clock protection. He still circulates quietly among friends who have not abandoned him. What has changed is public tolerance. The public who once saw him as the Queen's favourite now see him as someone who brought disgrace on the monarchy in an era where scrutiny is relentless. Andrew's past is not fading into the background. The more people speak, the more the patterns line up, and the harder it becomes for the palace to argue that this was a one-off friendship gone wrong. It appears to have been a lifestyle, a habit, and a worldview that acquired its shape long before Epstein ever arrived. So let me ask you this. After everything that has come out, after the interviews, the legal settlements, the memoirs, and now these claims about networks of staff allegedly sourcing young women for him, do you believe there is anything left of Andrew's public life that can be restored? Or has this chapter of royal history reached a permanent closing point? Do you expect more to be exposed once the files are released later this month? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you want to stay updated on every twist in this ongoing story, make sure you subscribe. These stories keep unfolding, and I will be here to expose every detail. Thanks for watching.